Most people with disc herniations misunderstand this one thing, and it keeps them in pain instead of making progress. And that's that you don't need to fix anything to actually get better. And as a chiropractor who's overcome a disc herniation myself and now helped hundreds of people do the same, it's probably the number one thing that I wish most people understood. Simply put, the health of your disc actually doesn't have as much to do with the state of your symptoms as we would think. And we look at a little bit of the research on disc herniations, it's really easy to see that that correlation isn't always there, with almost 80% of disc undergoing reabsorption within the first 12 months, and half of those being within the first 6 months. However, if you've ever had a disc herniation or if you know people with them, the symptoms or the pain can last a lot longer than that. But that's the important thing to key in on. We shouldn't be focusing on fixing anything within the disc, and instead we should be focusing on managing your symptoms so that you can get back to living your day-to-day life without as much pain. So instead of almost religiously checking that MRI image or the x-ray image and seeing if that herniation has shrunken in size or gone back to normal before you feel safe to really start any sort of rehabbing process, you can get started on that now so that you can avoid the big mistake that I see with a lot of people. And that's that you find yourself in a really hard step to overcome, taking 12 to 18 months off from all sort of physical activity and then trying to reintroduce it again. That's where you can run into big levels of sensitization to any sort of movements as well as just physical activity alone because your body's been so deconditioned from the past year and a half off. And it makes it really easy to run into frequent re-aggravation and really bad flare-ups. And instead, what you can do right now, instead of waiting for your image or your MRI to look a lot better, is you can start finding out where your symptoms are bugging you the most in your day-to-day. Where are they popping up? What sort of movements or activities are you finding that you're struggling the most with? Because once you know those things, you can start working on them right away. So using an example that I run into with a lot of the clients that I've worked with is any sort of bending over activities. So think getting dishes out of the bottom of the dishwasher, that causing a lot of pain either in your low back or running down your legs. We can start focusing on how can we get more comfortable in that position? How can we start to introduce it in more and more ways so that your body and your back specifically are a little bit more prepared for it, so it can handle doing it a little bit more without as much aggravation. Exercises that reintroduce that same range of motion but maybe a little bit easier. Exercises that mimic that exact movement but setting it up in a way that it's not causing so much tension on your nerves, and starting to rebuild the strength in the muscles used in those movements so that you can start to feel more comfortable and confident when you actually go to do it. These are the things that are actually going to make a difference in your day-to-day and your symptoms you're experiencing. And you can start that now instead of waiting 12 months down the road when your MRI looks a little bit better. It's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of headaches, and it's going to make the overall recovery process go a lot smoother.